another episode of Champagne and JD. JD Fox here, and you obviously can tell Andrew Champagne is missing. He is taking his annual Las Vegas March Madness trip. We'll hear from Andrew later on in the show. But the Joan Rivers of our show, the guest co-host that we love the most, Rachel McLaughlin, is here. Rachel, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I like that intro. It's really rainy and nasty here, though, today.
And we have a great guest, and we're going to be talking about Indiana racing with Brian Elmore, who's the executive director of the Indiana HBPA and been a big part of the racing scene in Indiana for a long time. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, JD, and thank you for having me today. Been looking forward to this.
Of course. So, one of the first things we want to know, kind of the origin story of you and how you got into racing and kind of how your career progressed. So if you want to talk us into how you got your start in horse racing and what roles you kind of played over the course of your career leading up to now as the executive director of the Indiana HBPA.
Sure. I'm very old. Some people claim that I've been around since Jesus was a yearling. That's not quite accurate. But I have spent 45 years in the racing industry and absolutely loved it. I started out owning horses. And the first race horses I bought, I was age 21, and I was buying quarter horses. And we were racing more out west, Oklahoma, Blue Ribbon Downs, which in there anymore, but tracks of that nature and around. And then I eventually moved into thoroughbreds. I started a career path working at the tracks, cleaning stalls, learning it from the bottom up, to be quite honest. I then trained my quarter horses and all, and then had an opportunity to go out to Texas, this small little Class 2 track out there called Bandera Downs, out in the hill country of Texas, outside of San Antonio, about 30 miles to the northwest. And I ended up being general manager out there for about 3 years. And it was a mixed meet out there of thoroughbreds and quarter horses. And we saw probably the bottom level thoroughbred that can run at a track, but we saw the best quarter horses there are anywhere. And from there, being from Indiana originally, Churchill Downs was opening up Hoosier Park in the OTB system. And I applied back in Indiana to be able to come home. I had family here, daughters here, my mom's here, things of that nature. And fortunately, they hired me to come back and came back to Indiana in an OTB situation, managing those. And later became, actually from the OTB system, Churchill was the majority owner at that time. And an opportunity came up for me to go to Ellis Park as general manager. 2005, a deadly tornado hit that region and tore half the racetrack up. It was gone. Unfortunately, JD, there were about 25 people that lost their lives that lived in the trailer court right behind the racetrack about 1.5 miles. So it was a real tragedy. And the fact that Churchill decided to rebuild Ellis Park was kind of a healing process, that whole tri-state area. And got to run the meet down there in 2006. Churchill then sold that property to an individual. I came back to Indiana at Hoosier Park. I worked on a couple projects out east for the ownership at that time. But long and short, I ended up as general manager at Hoosier Park. We ran thoroughbreds and quarter horses in the fall, and we ran standard breds in the spring, and we flipped the track over, and that's all an interesting process. And then we moved forward, and our company acquired Indiana Live, now known as Indiana Grand. And I was fortunate enough to be able to move to corporate as a vice president of racing, and I had oversight of both the tracks in Indiana. So that's kind of how I got to where I was. As most of the viewers probably know, Centaur ended up selling the properties, and I opted out at that time. I took some time off. I was a little bit, to be honest, if you've been in it so long, I was a little bit track sour. Sometimes you can get a nice horse that gets track sour and can't beat a cheap climber. So I took a little time off to refresh.
Properties, right? I mean, you were the VP of both. So he was the general manager of Hoosier Park and Indiana Grand pretty much. And it was a lot. And starting a new year.
It was a lot of fun
Really
because we went through a lot of transition things, and with the slot machines coming on and building the facilities out, things like that. And then I took a couple years off and owned some horses racing around the country. And then had an opportunity, the Indiana HBPA approached me about would I have an interest in the executive director job. And it was kind of a natural fit. I live close to the track. I said, let's give it a try, and been here going on 3 years, a little over 3 years. And I think it's worked out pretty well. I enjoy it. I enjoy the people. I enjoy being around the horses.
Well, I think, and Rachel, I'll let you speak to this a little bit, but obviously Brian played a big role in getting your start. And as I put it on the side here, training a wild filly, can you give us any idea of what a 21-year-old Rachel McLaughlin was first time out at the track? Because I think we're all fascinated to hear that.
You don't want to miss a day because something's going to happen. I'm just telling you. It's like you need to have a set of draw reins on her and full cut blinker, okay? And the thing, JD, I appreciate about her most was her enthusiasm, okay? She wasn't afraid to get out there. As you know, she's not afraid to talk, and she interacts very well with people. She asks a lot of questions. She made a few errors along the way and quickly corrected. But now, as I've seen her mature and grow over the years, what gives me satisfaction is getting to be involved with her and mentoring her somewhat a little bit. And now she doesn't need the full cut blinkers anymore. It's blinkers off because she knows the task at hand. She can focus on that and get it done while also managing this project or this project and things like that. And she's developed into one of our, top-notch analysts, I believe, across the nation.
Oh, wow. Well, this was just excellent. Okay, thanks, Brian.
Did you hear that? I didn't mean for her to hear that.
I didn't think I was going to hear that. No, but yeah, Brian actually, thank God, because he had tons to do too. But Tammy, she was doing the program and she was doing community relations at that time, and she just didn't have the time to watch every single thing. And neither did Brian, don't get me wrong, but he paid a lot more attention to the front, what was coming out of the simulcast than Tammy got to. She was kind of handling the back part of it a little bit. And so Brian caught some of my wonderful mistakes, and he took the time to come in. He could have just let me fail, but he took the time as a general manager who was super busy to come in and say, you mess up, or you might have thought that, but this is actually how it is. And yeah, I'm pretty thankful for that because he taught me a lot about racing. So, and it was probably very hard to stay, on top of me without draw reins and blinkers and everything. So good job, Brian.
My pleasure.
I would have proposed a sulky and just following her around everywhere she went personally. I mean, I'm glad something worked out.
Yeah. And the whip. We never got to the whip.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, I probably needed it a couple times.
Earplugs out. We'll, transitioning a little bit and talk about Indiana racing. It's one of the things we love, obviously having Rachel on to discuss, and she's very, very passionate about Indiana racing. And Rachel, I know you've been seeing a lot on social media, kind of this smaller track versus bigger track debate when it comes to field sizes and field acceptances.
Yeah, I thought it would be great to talk to Brian because a lot of people don't realize the effect, or maybe the effect here in Indiana, of course, and then that also transpires to other tracks that are like us or smaller or what have you, that the effect that it has on the state, but then also, how it would affect overall if those tracks went away. Bettors just think of it from a betting standpoint, and they don't think the long game. And that's what Brian's kind of one of his many jobs as, executive director of the HBB is to invest in Indiana horse racing, especially the horsemen. And so I thought maybe first you could discuss sort of the impact of even a track like ours. We're not a huge, big name track. We're obviously growing, but tell them a little bit about how it impacts Indiana.
Oh, that would be great. And I really appreciate this opportunity because most of the people out here in the world, they see horse racing and they see it at the track. And think of it, as, if you will, as this. Think of it as an iceberg, okay? And the track is this very, very top part. It's the 10% that's sticking out of the water. All the investment and all the money is below, just like 90% of the iceberg below. It's all about the agribusiness is what it's about. And that's why each state is different. Each state has its own regulating body. Now, I can speak specifically to Indiana, and I can bore you to death with all kinds of detail and information. But here's the bottom line. In Indiana, we raise 3 breeds. We raise thoroughbreds, quarter horses, and standardbreds. It's a $1 billion annual add to the Indiana GDP. And along in that is about $366 million in wages. And when you start figuring about all the taxes generated, breeding farms, property taxes, and you start adding all this together, ancillary, the veterinarians, the blacksmiths, and the guy selling you the feed and the hay, and the trucking and the vehicles and the vans and things. It's $1 billion a year to the state of Indiana. And that's significant. That's really what horse racing is about. It's about the agribusiness. Yes, we do come to the track. That's our showcase. That's our, if you want to right now with March Madness, that's our gymnasium. Our gymnasium is a track where we come and play the game. However, all the work and sweat is done out somewhere else. But that's where it all culminates.
And how much of the state is affected by it? I didn't know that.
In Indiana, we have 92 counties. And in every single county of Indiana, there is someone affiliated with or provides services to the horse racing industry. Also, I think is interesting is in the state of Indiana, we have a population of 45,000 Amish. And the Amish as a group are the largest producer of standardbred racehorses in the state. And I've wondered, and I've got to know several of them, and I really appreciate them and respect them. And you got to think about this. When they really see a nice, sharp, good-looking horse go by, pulling that sulky, JD, that would be you going down to the local Ferrari store and looking at that bright red Ferrari thinking, man, I sure would like to have that.
Yeah.
They play a vital role in Indiana in what they provide.
Yep.
And so when you take all these things to consideration and you take just one horse and you got the owners and you got the trainers, maybe they bought it at a sale like Faxi Tipton, you got bloodstock agents, you got barn crew, you got insurance people that insure the horses, you've got hot walkers, grooms, blacksmith, pack dealers. Just one horse makes a tremendous impact, in the area. And one of the things I had read in preparing for this, in just Shelby County alone, Indiana Grand being here provides $36 million worth of employment opportunities. And that's about 983 people. That's a big thing for this county. Now, when you add in the fact that our forefathers, our legislators, our people downtown had the vision enough that really gaming was about the agribusiness, horse racing and all. And that's why the laws were written such that horse racing gets a portion of the adjusted gross revenues that come in from the casinos, which help raise purses where you can get better stock, better horses, improve the game. And that's what we're doing. And it's been especially tough, JD, coming out of this last year with the pandemic and all. But I'm going to tell you what, things are changing. Things are changing. I feel really good about Indiana and where we're at and where we're going. 2021 will be a good year. 2022 is blast off. I'm telling you. Just this week, Caesars announced here at Indiana Grand a $32 million expansion of the gaming floor for a World Series of Poker Room, for 20 more live table games. We like to hear that. Horsemen like to hear that. That's a good investment. So as I look to the future in Indiana specific, it's very positive.
Yeah, and one of the things there is the term that's often thrown around, and it's a term personally that makes me cringe, is the term racino, because there's so much more going on to that. It's not as simple as getting gaming on site, but it's the balance of an organization as a whole knowing how to put together racing and gaming together in a way that makes sense for the surrounding community.
It does, and you're right, and there has to be a marriage there, is the way I look at it. And we've been very fortunate in Indiana with the owners of the properties. First of all, it's been made very clear to them from the get-go when they've applied for the license that, you wouldn't have this gaming opportunity without horse racing. You just wouldn't have it. It's not going to happen. So it's an understood thing going into it. And I feel really good how we work with management, and now with the new Caesars management and all that's here, and Eric Hallstrom, our general manager, and Mike Rich, who's executive senior manager over the property. We get along so well, it's kind of scary. We don't have a lot of the issues that other states I read about and see do.
So true.
Yes, and of course I have to get this out of the way. # Team Hallstrom. But Rachel, I'm trying to draw your ire a little bit. But you mentioned obviously your role with the HBPA and helping the horse persons of Indiana. One of the things that I wish we had room for in the forum. I hate the term et al. It's you list 2 owners and then everybody else, because you could see at these smaller tracks 15, 20 people all with a small stake involved in a racehorse, and it kind of gets them in. But, there are so many more people that go into a horse than just, you might hear about the trainer, you might hear about the groom, and that may be it. But, you've got all the assistant trainers, you've got all the people on the backside. And they need somebody looking after them. And that's really one of the roles that the HBPA provides. So for those that are uninitiated to what the HBPA does nationally, but more specifically, obviously in Indiana, can you give an idea of what some of the things that you do for the backside workers, ranging from education and insurance and healthcare, those sort of things?
Sure, I'd be glad to, JD. And I made a few notes here. And first of all, you talk about education. We offer English as a second language. We have a population of about 300 people on the backside, and a majority of them are minority, Hispanic, that come into work in the horse industry. It's very common in our industry. So we provide opportunity for them to learn English, and we offer Spanish to others here that might want to improve their communication skills. We offer, if there's any kind of substance abuse problems and things of that nature, we address that. We have professionals that will come in and counsel on things like that. We have a gentleman by the name of Julio Rubio, who is a Hispanic gentleman that comes up once a week, and he works with so many of the people on the backside, and first of all, that are here legally. And he helps them with visas or green cards. But that's kind of his role, and it's a very valuable role we play to help get enough help for our trainers locally. We have a wonderful benevolence program. We offer a clinic twice a week back at our HBPA offices, where anybody on the backside can walk in. You got any illnesses, we've got a nurse practitioner there. She can evaluate you. They can take blood tests. They can do all kinds of things of that nature. She can write scripts if needed for backside workers. And then if there's more extensive tests that need to be done, we refer over here to Major's Hospital, and they can do diagnostic tests and things of that nature. And we're very fortunate that in the state law, there was a dedicated percentage of the monies generated from the casino, from AGR, that goes to benevolence program. And I'll share this with you. I mean, we have a total budget of about $1.2 million to operate our business. And about 60% of that goes primarily just for benefits for people that work back here. And you say, well, that's great. I love it. We do a lot of good things, but also we provide about $100,000 a year in horse welfare and promotion and advertising. We provide funeral assistance for people who need it. You can go right down the list, and it's no different than running any other business. We have attorneys. We represent all the horsemen owners and trainers that race in Indiana Grand. So we do all the contracts with Indiana Grand. We're the representative of the horsemen at the Indiana Horse Racing Commission. We represent the horsemen in the state legislature. So there again, we employ lobbyists. It's important. You got to do it. And then we're an affiliate with the National HBPA, which represents 30 some states that have affiliates. And on a higher thing, and many of the hot topic right now is the HISA bill that was passed in Congress in December. It was kind of jammed through, and 11 of the HBPA affiliates have filed a lawsuit via the Liberty Justice Center. And I know that's kind of a hot topic right now. And JD, just to be honest with you, we believe what the national legislature did in Washington, D.C. was illegal. They're giving legislative authority to a private entity, which we don't believe that's legal. But the long and short of it is this. For 5 years, we've tried to get a number. If this program goes into effect, and if USADA is going to take over testing, and you're going to have this national authority, what's the cost? Just what's the cost? Is it going to be per starter per race? Is it going to be a blanket number? Nobody can give us that number. That's really what I want to hear. Is it going to cost me another $20 to start my horse in each race, or is it going to cost me $200? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think one of the things is that's a big key part of it that's not getting a lot of talk. I think one of the things this week that has drawn interest is you have kind of the tale of two riding crop situations where Robbie Alvarado gets fined at Santa Anita for having a crop like up here when you're not allowed to have that in California up there, and then you have Rated R Superstar and that sort of situation down at Oaklawn in terms of what's deemed excessive use. And people want to say, hey, this legislation is going to come through and hopefully unify some of those rules across the states. And yes, that's a great part of it, but there's so much more to it that is a lot tougher to, manage and handle. And that's where there's a lot of discussion going on. And I think it's a very valuable discussion amongst the states and the various HBPAs and the national HBPA.
Another thing that the Indiana HBPA has done, and I'm very proud of it. I'm proud to be a part of it. I not just support it myself, but I serve as an ambassador on the Jockeys and Jeans, is the support for the permanently disabled jockeys. That's something that we financially, we assist with, we participate in. Rachel remembers 2015 when we held the fundraiser here on a day, and on that given day, we raised more money in one day. It was over $206,000 that went to the permanently disabled jockey fund. And see, to me, JD, that's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do.
Auctioned off that night that Jim Brown ended up buying is this picture right here. We had all of our people who were SLT there to support and to buy and to do the auction. And it wasn't just like we held it for people. We had our business to support it as well. And the HBPA and Brian took the lead on that. That was an excellent point.
Well, we had people like Ty Murray, 9-time world bull champion rider. He donated a champion saddle that he had won. And we had this fantastic auction. And I'm fortunate to have known a lot of the Indiana Pacer, the old ABA guys, like Mel Daniels and Darnell Hillman and Don Boozy. Yeah, Rick Smits was here. I mean, it was just a blast. We had a lot of fun, but the purpose was for the right thing. And it's for helping those in our industry that have been permanently injured. And I will not rest and I will not stop until we find a way. If we can find a way with this HISA bill, and I agree with you, unification of a lot of things, if we can find a way to do all these things, surely to God, we can find a way in order to take the smallest percentage of revenues from this huge billion-dollar game to try and help those 61 jockeys that are permanently disabled.
I get in the dunk tank every year, so I challenge you this year to get in the dunk tank, Brian.
I'll do it, but I like to throw the balls when you're in there, Rachel. Just so you know, you touched on a couple other things, and let me just hit real quick. You talked about field sizes in different states, and I understand some of the bettors. Hey, I do too. I like to look at a big field at Churchill or Keeneland, or out at Santa Anita. Those are quality. Those are nice horses. But it goes back to each and every state relies on this agribusiness, and although I can tell you this, and I've monitored, I've watched this, I've looked at the numbers. I can put a full field of $5,000 claimers out on the track that are pretty well equal in talent. Nobody's a short price. And the bettors around this country will bet more money on that race than they will a 6-horse allowance race where you got a 3 to 5 favorite race. Just the way it is. I'll guarantee you that's true. So each track in each respective state, first responsibility is this agribusiness in the state and what they do. And the one thing I might say to a lot of these gamblers is, maybe we need to eliminate the lower bottom tracks, or maybe half of them, or 6%. I don't know. But let me tell you what happens if that would happen. The big tracks are good businessmen. That's another way to say they can be greedy. So when you eliminate any competition that might have lower takeout, lower simulcast signal fee to pay for their product, these big tracks are going to continue to up the amount of money, whether it's to the ADWs that they negotiate a price with, or their simulcast signal fee. And in the end, that's going to be that much more money coming out of the bettors' pockets.
So I'm glad you said that, Brian. I didn't really understand how to explain that when I've had this conversation a million times, and I understand that bettors don't get the business part of racing. It's not something that's very transparent a lot of the time. But to get rid of competition and have only so many main tracks running would be, in my mind, from what you and I briefly talked about the other day, would be kind of a short game play. It would, for a while it would do that, but then over the long haul, it would end up creating to where some of the smaller operations wouldn't be able to keep up at that high of a competition. And then not only that, your fields, not only the part you said about the takeout getting higher, costing the bettors more and all that, it would also end up in the long run creating shorter fields, probably.
Yeah, and look at it like this too. Think of the horse racing industry as, we'll say, Major League Baseball. Everybody, you want to get to the Yankees. You want to get to that top level. You want to get that big salary. You want to have the TV rights. But they got a AAA team, and they got a AA team. And if you look at it, some of these horse tracks are the AAA of the Kentuckys or Californias or Florida or New York. Okay, and you can develop people. But there's tens of thousands of people that make their living at these medium to smaller tracks that wouldn't have the opportunity to go to a bigger track. They just wouldn't need them. So it's an employment opportunity for all these people. Now, there's not anybody I know in this industry that thinks of this as a job. It's not a job to any of these people. It's a way of life. It's what they do, and it's what they love, and that's why they do it. So you would be discounting all these people, tens of thousands, that add to each state's GDP. And I think it would be a sad thing. Might it come to that day? I don't know. It might. It could. I hope it doesn't. I hope there's always a place where the smaller guy, the smaller trainer that might have a string of 10, rather than being sitting there and having 200, and being able to get to pick your starters, your A team, your B team, your C team. These people work just as hard, and they deserve it just as much. And they're just trying to make a living, doing what they love.
Yeah, and I think really I've been wanting to make this point for a while, and I think with you on the show, it's a good time to do it. One thing I would implore the horse bettor to do once is, most of the states have a strong state-bred breeding program, and there's going to be a state bred sale that's nearby to you that you're going to be able to go and see and learn about horses just by watching horses in a sales ring. You're going to be able to meet people who are very passionate about this. It's not a job, as Brian said. This is a life and a passion. And you're also, even if you're not there to, you're not ready to purchase a horse or you're trying to learn more about it. I mean, there are vendors there that are supporting your local breeding program, that buying concessions, buying a cowboy hat, buying all that stuff. It helps the internal economy to your local state in terms of racing, and it also just opens your eyes to what's really going on in the world that's happening around you. So I implore people watching this, if you have the opportunity to do that, and maybe during the COVID times there hasn't been a good opportunity for you, but now as we move forward, if there's a sale that's nearby, I recommend going to it. You're going to meet some great people that are passionate about horses, and you're going to meet, you're going to learn so much just by watching these horses go through the sales ring and just being able to visualize, hey, figure out, okay, this horse sold for $50,000. This horse sold for $5,000. What did I see that's different? And that helps you on the racetrack. And you can point out some of the things that you get from Rachel and from Nancy when you're watching the paddock show at Indiana Grand.
Yeah,
I encourage your listeners to do just that, JD, just what you said. And another great thing to do, and many places you can do that, is once you're ready, you might want to start in with fractional ownership of just one horse. Just get a small piece of it, 2, 3, 4%. And you'll learn so much about the industry and what happens on the backside, back at the farm. That most people, they come to the track at 1:00. Here come the horses out on the track. They race and they go home, and that's it. They have no idea about all the other things that go on, which really is exciting and fun and educational.
Yep, definitely. I think that even if you're a bettor and you don't have the means to be able to buy or be in the industry, to go and see it would make you even that much closer to the industry. And like JD said, understand it in a way that people who just all they watch is the simulcast, they make bets and then they're done. You want to understand what you're betting on and the whole thing. Like Brian said, the iceberg, that would be an excellent way to do so. Good job, JD. You get a gold star today.
Well, I that means a lot, Rachel, considering I am on Team Hallstrom and will be for forever. But it's another story for another day. Brian, really appreciate your
social media. Has no clue what we're talking about. Brian, just say you're on Team Rachel, please, just to even the score. Come on.
Who?
So just say I'm on Team Rachel.
You're breaking up. I can't hear you. No, Team Rachel, she's great. They really do have a great team with Tammy Knox here at Indiana Grand, and I'm very proud of all of them and proud to get to work with them. JD, and again, thank you for allowing me to be on the show. I've really enjoyed this because I could talk about horse racing for a long time. It's something that's a passion to me, and so to help maybe get some thoughts out there to your listeners about maybe they never perceived it quite like that. Maybe it'll be helpful to them.
Yeah, no, that's great, and we'll have you back on sometime soon, Brian. Really appreciate your time today. And if you want to learn more about the Indiana HBPA, you can go to inhbpa.org, or you can follow on Twitter at Indiana HBPA. That's not probably Brian that's handling that Twitter account.
No,
but
believe me, it's not. No.
Thank God Brian trusts our opinion about social media because he ain't on it.
I ain't on it. I missed that class.
But lots of good information that comes, and obviously they retweet a lot of the posts that are put out by Indiana Grand, by Tammy, by Rachel, so on and so forth. And they also provide information if you follow them on Twitter. But the website's also a great place to go. So Brian, really appreciate your time today, and good luck at the races when we get going.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye-bye, Rach.
Bye.
All right, we'll be back with more right after this. And a special thanks again to Brian Elmore. That was just some great stuff talking about Indiana horse racing and the Indiana HBPA. And I learned something. And Rachel, you know him well, and I think you may have even learned something through that conversation.
Yeah, when I asked him, when you told me that Champagne was out of town, and I asked him, I learned a lot. And I honestly, when I was the wild filly, I didn't know any of that stuff. And over the course of being friends with a lot of the board members on the HBPA, I've learned more. But even the part about like all the counties in Indiana being, affected, that's got to be that way or close to it in other states that have even bigger racing programs than ours, and even maybe some that have smaller. So it's really important to me. I just want the bettors to understand that it's not just what you see. They only see it from one point of view, and I'm not going to go into that, but I'm just glad he came and got to explain it definitely from his point of view.
Now, we would be doing our fans a disservice collectively if we didn't try to make them some money before this podcast ended. So we're going to be touching on the Louisiana Derby, $1 million Grade 2 affair for 3-year-olds trying to earn Derby points on the Kentucky Derby Trail. It'll go down as race number 14 at the fairgrounds on Saturday. Post time is 6:44 Eastern time. We have a field of 8, and the morning line favorite is Mandaloon at 8-5 for Brad Cox with Florent Giroux aboard. But at first glance, and as I grew into this, I think you can make a case for most of the field here, Rachel. And I'm curious to see what horse you want to talk about to lead things off.
Well, I looked at it, and with as hot as Brad Cox is right now, I thought it was going to be hard to go against him. And just from in Indiana, it's really especially hard to go against him. But I'm going to try to with Proxy, I think. I like Proxy. I think has a really good chance. Obviously, you've got Florent Giroux with the Brad Cox entry, but it's going to, when I honestly am betting to make money and not as a track analyst, which I know we've talked about this, when you're a track analyst, you find long shots and you try to go against favorites when it makes sense. I think it does here, but you also want to give people maybe the most likeliest winners. I'm not the kind of analyst, and Ed DeRosa and I go round and round and round about this, but I don't just pick a horse just because its odds are high or I want to make a bunch of money. I want you to cash a winner. But I think Proxy has a good shot to take this one. First time blinkers too, I thought was very interesting. Ran second last time out in the Risen Star. I liked that effort a lot. Showed a lot of grit in that race. Has good speed on the dirt. Was that race last time out? You know how my PPs got messed up. That was a mile and an eighth. We're going
a mile and 3/16
this time, and it's a tough race, but it's a shorter field. So, and 4 is my lucky number.
Well, that's obviously, an important thing to factor in. I think an important note that people might be seeing when they read the PPs, depending on when they print them out, of course, is Doug O'Neill is currently starting, as we record this on Thursday, the 18th, a 10-day suspension in California, and obviously the other jurisdictions take part in that as well. So when you look at Hot Rod Charlie coming off the bench for the first time since January 30th and the third place finish in the Robert B. Lewis, you will see a new trainer listed, Leandro Mora, but don't be alarmed. That wasn't a private sale. That's not a new barn. That is Leandro Mora is Doug O'Neill's right-hand man, and obviously you may remember him. Ran the Breeders' Cup with Golden Sense. He's been a long-time trainer and obviously doesn't train many on his own these days, mainly known as the lead assistant trainer for Doug O'Neill. So nothing is changing there for Hot Rod Charlie, who is the morning line second choice at 3-1. Obviously, last year finishing second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile to Essential Quality. I think a strong performer here. But I'm going to go crazy with the Cheese Whiz. I'm going to just go completely off the board here. And I want to talk about the one starring in my dreams. Obviously, Dallas Stewart always has a horse that in one of these prep races or in one of these races in general will hit the board or do something crazy at $1,000,000 to 1. 20-1 more.
Same thing.
20-1 morning line here for starring in my dreams. And this is a horse that's just learning. If you look at the comment line for the last race, I mean, you need a thesaurus to figure some of it out. But off slow, rank early, lug out at the 7.5 for a long point. 3 wide to 2 wide, kind of juggled in at the half mile part, then found the 2 path and was empty. I mean, the horse was ranked almost the entire backstretch. The
Yeah.
horse was meandering. The horse was doing all sorts of things. But what we've seen in the past before that, 2 wins. This horse has a lot of talent. And the other thing this horse has is a sprint pedigree. This is 100% a sprint pedigree. Super Saver out of Boy Crazy, Sky Mesa mare. So the last 2 starts have not been clean out of the gate. Obviously, in the allowance event, November 22nd at Churchill, was able to get close enough to the lead and nose out late. But you look at the maiden score, September 18th, the only time this horse has gotten a clean trip out, and it was basically the horse was toying with the field and could have won by 8 if Joe Talamo wanted to. Gets Luis Saez aboard here. That's another key part to this. I think Starting in My Dreams is the fastest horse in the field, and I think Luis Saez, and I always say this, is the best gate jockey in the United States jockey colony right now. So I think that Starting in My Dreams, will he win? I'm not sure, but at the odds you're going to get, the fact that this horse probably is going to be leading most of the way around and probably can hold on, I think it's a must-use in your exotics for sure, but maybe even in some of your multi-race exotics.
I was going to say the same thing. I was going to put the 1, and I thought you were going to call me absolutely batshit crazy, to be completely honest. I thought you were going to call me nutso, but I was going to put the 1 in definitely in my super because of all the same reasons. And honestly, just for the fact that Dallas Stewart is hot right now. I mean, in the last couple weeks, he's I'm just looking at the stats right here off the top of in the last 4 starts, 2 wins and a second. So I like the workout as well going into the race. The thing about a race like this, that's, a very big race, got some big names in it, but still not huge names. Also, none of them have really been tested at this distance. Some of them have gone close, but that's not the same. A lot of people think, if they can run, Mile 16, they can run this or whatever. I think that you don't know what they're going to do until they actually race at that distance. So you could be right. He could get out there and get loose and be the one to take it all. But I'm definitely going to put him in for my supers. And I think you're going to get a good price because I think the Cox horse is going to be, what is he, 6-5, just in the early money right now. He's already been, I think he's going to go off close to 6-5.
Yeah, and we should mention Mandaloon obviously coming up.
When it comes closer, sorry.
Yeah. When it comes to, the win in the Risen Star did, absolutely nothing wrong there, was in hand. Again, it was a case where I think Flo could have won by more, but wanted to save the horse for this spot because the Derby trail is tricky. I don't mind the trip in the Lecomte as well. I think this is a solid horse. I just think this race lends itself to somebody going out up front, being brave, and no one being able to catch. And I don't see Mandaloon being quick enough to be even in the front 4 of this race. I think Mandaloon is going to come from deeper back, given the distance. So I wanted to give Starting in My Dreams a shot. And then the other horse, when we're talking about speed, we obviously need to talk about is Midnight Bourbon for Steve Asmussen, $525,000 Keeneland September yearling sale. Finished 3rd in the Risen Star, was 2nd most of the way. But, you look before that, coast-to-coast winner in the Lecomte, was 5-1 Risen Star day, 5-1 morning line here in the Louisiana Derby with Joe Talamo aboard. One thing to mention, we mentioned Starting in My Dreams. Joe Talamo gets off Starting in My Dreams, moves on to Midnight Bourbon. And again, it was, a choice of speed horses for him. I think both Starting in My Dreams and Midnight Bourbon are going to play a big role in this race when it comes post time on Saturday.
Yeah, that was for my try is where I was going to put Midnight Bourbon. I honestly think it's very interesting that, and I've said this before, I look at Brisnet speed figures. I know a lot of people are high on buyers, but I like the Brisnet speed figures, and neither one of them are very far off of that last Risen Star effort for Mandaloon, and 98 is both of them. So really, either one of them, I think that you could put in either your exotic or trifecta, and like you said, they are definitely going to play a big role in this race. I think the Hot Rod Charlie coming off of a freshening is going to be the question mark here, where he's going to play into that. Is there going to be a long shot like the one that's going to come in and maybe knock him off? Maybe he needs one. I doubt that that's what, Maura thinks, or, Doug O'Neill, as we were talking about earlier, or they wouldn't have put him in. And the works look really, really nice. Sharp 5 furlong work there on, March 14th. All of these horses are training, obviously, really crazy right now. The other thing I will say about the one is sometimes, like you said, being ranked on the outs, on the whole first part of that race, even though that's why I always wait when people ask me after just two Derby prep races, who do you like, blah, blah, blah. I always kind of, let's talk about their efforts and how they are. But I always look at the actual horse side of things. Not every horse just comes out and is like superstar, super classy and looks like they've been running forever, like American Pharoah or, any of the other big winners. But definitely think maybe Starring in My Dreams has kind of figured it out a little bit, had figured it out going in the Risen Star. Then I think that was pretty big race. And like you said, didn't go the way you wanted. And I think possibly this could be the chance to where got a little bit more room and it could play out the way you want. So that also could be the case for a couple others. But I definitely think those two are going to be, it's kind of open between the 4, 5, 6, and 7, in my opinion. I mean, everybody's opinion. It's obviously those.
Yeah, indeed. So you mentioned Brisnet Speed Figures. You mentioned Ed DeRosa. This is, of course, officially the twinspires.com Louisiana Derby. Hi, Ed. Had to make sure we said that and get all of your plugs in out of the way. And that will be race 14 at the fairgrounds. Again, closeout sequence in both an estimated, not a guarantee, this is an estimated $750,000 late pick 5 sequence and an estimated $750,000 late pick 4 sequence, an all stakes pick 5 sequence, and really a great sequence for the pick 4 as well, as it's all graded stakes and they're all grade 2 events taking place on Saturday. And we look forward to seeing what comes of that and how this Derby trail shakes out going forward. So we've hit the final thoughts segment of the show. And even though he's not here, he's here with us in spirit. We're going to go to Andrew Champagne, somewhat live from Las Vegas. And we'll be back right after this.
How you doing, everybody? Andrew Champagne coming to you plausibly live from fabulous Las Vegas. You can see the Eiffel Tower from the Paris Casino in behind me, and over my back shoulder is actually the fountains at Bellagio. Really cool view here from the fabulous Flamingo. Sorry I couldn't be with you this week, but back to some semblance of normal. My dad and I are in Las Vegas for the first round of the NCAA tournament. Check all my social media platforms for some live updates, as well as some picks and plays between now and the end of the weekend. Thanks very much to JD and to Rachel for holding down the fort while I'm gone. I do have one thing that I would like to say, and this one is going to be a little bit heavy. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've seen a lot of instances of racism towards Asians and Asian Americans. This has to stop. If you know me, you know that I have a vested interest in this for any number of reasons, actually, both with where I live and with who I've been associated with for the last 7.5 years, a woman I happen to love very, very much. If we don't stop this, it's going to be a case where the Asians and Asian Americans among us will never feel safe in doing anything in society. This can be something as simple as calling COVID-19 something else. That's the stuff that fuels what we saw in Atlanta. It's fueled what we've seen in a lot of other major cities where Asians have been targets of hate crimes. And make no mistake, that is what they are. So for as much fun as I'm having in Las Vegas, that's weighing heavy on my mind. If you want to help, listen. Listen to what your Asian and Asian American friends are going through. Be an ally, and remember, it is not enough to simply not be a racist. We need to be anti-racist, and that's one of the things that I'm striving to do every day, so I hope you join me. In the meantime, JD, Rachel, thanks again. Hope to see you all back next week.
And that was Andrew Champagne, obviously with some heavy words on some of the things that are happening in the country right now, and racism just has no place anywhere, Rachel.
Yeah, I was telling you when we were going over everything, there is, I think in the public eye, as I am and everything, you try to not talk about sort of not that you don't try to talk about it, but you try to tread lightly when you're talking about, political stuff or things like this, touchy subjects. But I will tell you right now, I won't talk politics, but I will talk about anyone who is racist or bullies people or uses derogatory terms or targets the LGBTQ plus community. I have lots of Black friends. I have friends of color, friends not of color, friends that are gay, friends that are trans. And I have put a few people in their place on Twitter, and sometimes it gets me in trouble. But I definitely think that it was great for Andrew to come on and put that out there, because I don't understand why everybody can't just be nice, to be completely honest with you. Like, just be nice. Like, what if you were in their shoes? That's what I always try to think. What if you were in their shoes and they had nothing to do with something, and because of the color of their skin or their nationality, someone was mean to them? What if it was your kid? I mean, like, why do people do that? I don't know. And I don't know if it'll ever change, but kudos to Andrew. That was awesome for him to say that.
Are you much of a Vegas file, Rachel?
I actually have only been once. Emily and I went, Emily Gaskin from Hoosier Park. We were on Brent Musburger's radio show, and then on Mike and Polly, and it was so hot and it was so awesome, and we promised we would go back again. But I have only been once, and I didn't go to any of the big casinos or anything. I went to South Point. We went to a couple of the big Cosmos and like big restaurants and stuff, but I didn't even go into the Bellagio or anything like that. So I don't feel like I even did it right the one time I did go.
All right. Well, we'll have to work on that. I was going to see if you had any Vegas advice for Andrew. I will give always what my Vegas advice is, which is Secret Pizza, 3rd floor Cosmopolitan. Get the white slice.
Ooh,
you'll be in heaven.
Nice.
It's secret. It's secret. It's not on any sign. It's just down a hallway. It's one of 3 secret restaurants in the Cosmo. The other 2 are a lot more fun, and I like to keep those a secret. But Secret Pizza is definitely a good place to get a slice. So, Rachel, as we are in our final thought segment, anything else you want to touch on or plug?
No, I'm excited to get to fill in with you again, and I'm glad we talked. And I really am worried about my followers, because all of social media, I offered to shotgun a beer, which was my buddy's idea that I work with. And I have gotten an inordinate amount of followers in 24 hours, which makes me feel like people either have drinking problems or want me to have a drinking problem or already know that I do. No, just kidding.
Well,
but, yeah.
I don't know if you saw this, but I did put myself in charge of the commission to define what a beer is.
Shenanigans.
Because Michelob, I could probably get down with a light beer, but like Mick Ultra or an ultra low calorie beer, I don't think that's going to count for shotgunning. I'm sorry.
So I can't shotgun like a Bud Light?
Well, I think the Bud Light would be okay. I'm just saying, like, the next level down, if you try to pull some shenanigans with a 100-calorie beer, no, I think we're all going to call you out for it.
No, I mean, I would even be willing to do a Budweiser if that would make you happy, but I have plenty of Bud Light in the fridge. But I'm not going to do any of these like fancy beers like you beer snobs like. There's no way I'm doing it. Plus, first of all, it'd be like a waste because I'm riding a horse, so part of it will get, spilled. Most of it will get drank. It's just, but yeah, I ignored that on purpose.
Okay, fair enough. So my final thought is going to be very brief, but obviously after last weekend with big races in Australia, not necessarily being races at tracks that everybody in the U.S. could bet, this weekend, the Golden Slipper takes place on Saturday in Australia at Rose Hill Gardens, Friday night here in the States. And it is the big 2-year-old race that everybody looks forward to. 3.4 million Australian dollars on the line with the Grade 1 or Group 1, I should say, Longines Golden Slipper. Profiteer going to be probably your post-time favorite, trading in the Australian markets at about $3.90 right now. 2 horses I want to talk about. 4 Moves Ahead. 2 for 2 Lifetime, taking a lot of wise guy money down early in the week, was up at $9 when the market opened. Right now at $5.50. I think a good draw for Nash Rawweiler, drawing the 10-hole with 4 Moves Ahead, coming off of a score at Rose Hill Gardens. And a horse that I was high on early in the career, and it's tough to say early in the career for a 3-year-old, but again, this is going to be the tail end of the 3-year-old season in Australia because we do things different. These horses' birthdays are August 1st. It's a whole thing, Rachel. Shakiro came back and won a nice race in the Pago Pago at Rose Hill Gardens last week, coming back off the short rest, 7 days out, shot through an open hole. It was a great ride from Kieran McAvoy, who will be back aboard. Tough barrier draws 15, is also the toppy in the field with the 1, but in this case, it is a straight weight race. All the males are carrying 56.5 kilos. All the fillies are carrying 54.5. And one thing that I love, 4 Moves Ahead is a filly. One of the things I love about is Trackman comments in Australia, Rachel. So I don't think this would happen in the States. So when you win the prep race to the stake, this is 4 Moves Ahead last Trackman comment. Jogged up 300 meters, kept finding, bring on the slipper, meaning bring on this race for this horse.
That was
the
official comment of the race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Why don't we do that?
I think there are some places that have had some fun Trackman comments over the year, and some of those people are no longer charting, and that's unfortunate to all of us. And I hope we can have a little more levity and fun with it as we go forward. But so I am on 4 Moves Ahead, and for John Sargent, the Snitchell Dolmera bloodline. Wonderful there. Has already earned about $200,000 in 2 career starts. Really looking forward to this on Friday night, Rose Hill Gardens. Our friends at Sky Racing World will have all of the coverage. There's already a preview up from Michael Rona. Michael Rona will also be covering the race while calling races at Losail on Friday night on TVG.
Wow.
So make sure you stay tuned for that, because he's now doing both on air on Friday nights, covering the big Australian races and calling the races at Los Alamitos. He's a talented man.
I don't know how he does that. I can barely go handicap the races, handicap on TVG for them, then go and do the production schedule. I don't know how he can do 2 tracks at once. I would get confused. Like if you were literally doing 2 races, especially calling them, like he's got to be like, what's his name? Sheldon Cooper. I have a photographic memory or something.
And on that note, she's racing Rachel M on Twitter. I'm at Horse Tickets. Andrew Champagne at Andrew Champagne. Andrew will have probably some college basketball plays all weekend. I don't know if he's even touching the ponies. You'll get some racing plays from me, and you'll get chances to see Rachel on other podcasts and such as we move forward to the weekend talking about the Louisiana Derby. She's going to know this race like the back of her hand if she doesn't already. So stay tuned on social media for that. And Rachel, as always, thanks for being our Joan Rivers. Thanks for being our fill-in superstar. And we look forward to the next time we can do this podcast together.
All right. Thanks, JD. Thanks for having me. Bye, guys.
Of course. And as always, everybody stay safe out there. And for Andrew Champagne, I have to say the catchphrase, stay off the beaches. Everybody take care. Have a good one.